My name is Ethan Caldwell, 34 years old, a freelance documentary filmmaker based in Portland, Oregon. I've clawed my way up from nothing. Short films, music videos, even a couple of indie features that got some buzz at Sundance. It's not steady work, but it's mine, built on sweat and stubbornness. I'm good at it, damn good, and the paychecks prove it when the gigs line up. But to my in-laws, Margaret and Richard Thornton, I'm just a dreamer who'll never measure up. "How's the little movie hobby going?" Richard would sneer at family gatherings, his voice dripping with condescension. He was a real estate tycoon, the kind of guy who thought success was a penthouse view and a private jet. Margaret was no better, always fussing over my wife, Claire, while side-eyeing me like I was a stray dog Claire had dragged home. Every holiday dinner at their sprawling estate in Lake Oswego was a gauntlet. Richard would grill me about my unstable income, while Margaret would drop hints about more reliable careers. Claire would slip her hand into mine under the table, her quiet way of saying she was sorry for her parents' nonsense. I'd been on a grueling shoot in the Oregon Coast Range all week, filming a documentary about old-growth forest conservation for PBS. I was beat, salt air still in my lungs, mud caked on my boots. But Claire begged me not to skip her mother's 60th birthday dinner. "Just a few hours," she said, her green eyes pleading. I should have trusted the twist in my gut when Margaret pulled me aside in the kitchen, her smile too tight, her hands fidgeting as she handed me a glass of homemade elderberry cordial. "Something special for my favorite son-in-law," she said, her voice syrupy. Something was off. I just didn't know how off until it was almost too late. Claire and I met 7 years ago at a film festival, where my short doc about urban beekeepers was screening. She was finishing her PhD in marine biology, all fiery passion for saving the oceans. We clicked instantly. She got my need to tell stories through a lens, and I was in awe of her drive to protect the planet. Her parents? Not so much. From the moment I met them, Richard made it clear I wasn't the man he'd pictured for his daughter. He wanted a corporate lawyer, a tech bro, someone with a corner office and a 401k. Margaret was sneakier. She'd compliment my films, then ask when I'd settle down into something secure. At family events, she'd introduce me as the filmmaker instead of Claire's husband, like I was a guest who'd overstayed his welcome. For years, I tried to win them over. I'd share festival awards, show them clips of my work, mention clients like Netflix and National Geographic. Nothing budged their opinion that I was a phase Claire would outgrow. Last Thanksgiving, I overheard Margaret on the phone. "Claire could have married Daniel, you know, neurosurgeon, old money, but she picked the artsy one." The way she said artsy made it sound like a felony. Richard was blunter. When Claire and I shared we were trying for a kid, he cornered me. "Kids cost money, son. Maybe get a real job before you drag a child into your mess." I didn't tell Claire. She adored her parents, flaws and all, and I didn't want her caught in the crossfire. So I grinned, shook Richard's hand at every visit, praised Margaret's cooking, and buried my resentment. But there were red flags I should have heeded. The way Margaret would interrupt whenever I talked about a new project, pulling Claire away to help with dessert, the time she forgot to include me in the family Christmas card photo, the way Richard suggested couples counseling for Claire's reckless choices while staring me down. I brushed it off, thinking time would soften them. I was dead wrong. The Friday of Margaret's birthday dinner, I got back from the coast with a windburned face and a hard drive full of footage that'd cover our rent for half a year. Exhausted, I showered, threw on a decent shirt, and we drove to her parents' mansion, all glass and cedar in Portland's ritziest suburb. Dinner was the usual, Richard boasting about a new property deal, Margaret fussing over table settings, Claire's sister Lily and her husband Nate making small talk. I sipped a beer, counting the minutes until we could bolt. After the main course, Margaret announced she'd whipped up her famous elderberry cordial for dessert. She vanished into the kitchen, and I offered to help with the glasses. That's when I saw it. She had 2 glasses set apart from the rest. As I walked in, she hurriedly poured something from a tiny vial into one of them. Colorless, odorless, not a garnish or syrup. She shoved the vial into her pocket the second she heard my boots on the tile. "Oh, Ethan, I've got this," she chirped, her smile brittle. "This one's for you. Special recipe for my favorite son-in-law. My stomach lurched. The glass had a faint, oily sheen on the surface, catching the light. "Let me carry those," I said, grabbing both glasses before she could protest. In the dining room, Richard was scrolling his phone, barely glancing up as I set the tampered glass in front of him. "Cordial, sir?" I asked, my voice steady. I took the other glass and made a show of sipping it, then excused myself to grab water instead. 40 minutes later, Richard was gray-faced, sweating, and bolting for the bathroom. The sounds of his retching carried through the house. Margaret's face went white as bone when she realized what had happened. Her eyes locked on mine across the table, and in that split second I knew two things. My mother-in-law had tried to poison me, and she knew I'd switched the glasses. I didn't flinch, didn't call her out. I just ate my slice of birthday cake while Claire rushed to check on her dad. In the chaos, Richard swearing it was bad salmon, Margaret muttering about spoiled ingredients, I slipped the untouched glass meant for me into my jacket pocket. Something cold settled in me. Not rage, but a quiet, razor-sharp resolve. This wasn't over. Monday morning, I took the glass to a friend, Sarah, who ran a toxicology lab for a university. "Personal or work?" she asked, eyebrow raised. "Family drama," I said. 3 days later, she called. "Ethan, there was midazolam in that drink. Not enough to kill, but it'd knock you out for hours, maybe mess with your memory. Where'd you get this?" I asked for a written report and dodged her question. That night, I told Claire I needed a break from Sunday dinners, citing a big editing deadline. She was bummed but didn't push. I didn't tell her about the lab results, not yet. I needed more. Over the next 2 weeks, I dug deep. Margaret had prescriptions for sedatives from multiple doctors, stockpiling pills for years. There were whispers about her in their social circle. Missing jewelry at a charity gala, odd behavior at a neighbor's cocktail party. The Thorntons' money had buried most of it, but not all. I gathered everything, biding my time. Then Claire mentioned Margaret wanted me to film a short promotional video for her women's charity. "She specifically asked for you," Claire said, surprised. I agreed, sensing my opening. That Saturday, I showed up at their estate alone, camera gear in one hand, a manila envelope in the other. Margaret was waiting, dressed in designer clothes, her smile as fake as ever. "Richard was at a meeting," she said. Before we started, I handed her the envelope. "Thought you might want to see this," I said quietly. Inside was the toxicology report, plus records of her overlapping prescriptions. Her hands shook as she read. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "I'd never—" "We both know what you did," I cut in. "What I don't know is why." Her mask slipped. "You're not right for Claire. You're a drifter, Ethan. She needs stability, not some starving artist." I kept my cool. "And spiking my drink gives her stability?" She snapped. "It was just to make you miss that film premiere you wouldn't shut up about. Show Claire you're unreliable." I nodded, letting her words hang. "Here's the deal," I said. "You tell Richard what you did. Then you both start treating me like family. Not because you like me, but because if you don't, Claire gets every detail. Lab reports, prescriptions, the works." She laughed, but it was hollow. "She'll never believe you over us." I slung my camera bag over my shoulder. "Maybe, but she'll believe the evidence. And your neighbors you've screwed over? They'll talk. You willing to risk losing her?" I walked out without filming a frame. That night, Margaret called Claire, sobbing, claiming I'd threatened her during our session. When Claire asked me about it, I couldn't hold back. I showed her the lab report, the prescription records, even hostile texts Margaret had sent me over the years. "My mom wouldn't do this," Claire whispered, but her voice wavered. The next day, she confronted her parents alone. When she came home, her eyes were swollen. "Dad says you're twisting everything," she said, "that you're insecure about your career and trying to tear us apart." I just nodded. I'd expected this. "What do you believe?" I asked. She didn't answer, just curled up in bed, facing away from me. I'd fought back, but somehow I was the bad guy now, and they'd planted doubt in the one person I couldn't lose. For 3 weeks, Claire was distant. She'd visit her parents alone, come back quiet, her trust in me fraying. I buried myself in work, editing footage late into the night, waiting for her to come around. Then a package arrived, No return address, just my name scrawled on it. Inside was a USB drive and a note. You need to see this. N. Nate, Lily's husband. The drive held security footage from the Thorntons' house. Time-stamped the night of the dinner. There was Margaret in the kitchen, spiking the cordial. There I was, taking the glasses. There was Richard, drinking the tainted one, but it didn't stop there. Later that night, after we'd left, Margaret was screaming at Richard. "You drank the wrong glass, you idiot!" Richard shouted back. "This isn't the first time you've pulled something like this." Another clip 2 days later showed them in their study. "He knows what you did," Richard said. "So what?" Margaret replied. "It's his word against ours. Claire will never choose him over us. I've already told her their marriage is shaky. By the time I'm done, she'll be begging to move back home." I watched it 4 times, my hands trembling. This wasn't just about me. It was a calculated campaign to control Claire's life, and they'd done it before. I called Nate. "Why send this?" I asked. "Because they tried to sabotage us too," he said, voice low. "When Lily and I got engaged, they spread lies about me, said I was after their money. It nearly broke us. Lily still doesn't know the half of it. I couldn't let them do it to you." The next day, Richard texted me, "We need to talk. Man to man, no wives." I met him at his golf club, in a private room that reeked of cigar smoke. He poured himself a whiskey. "Families are messy, Ethan," he started. "Margaret's overprotective, but she means well." "Drugging me is meaning well?" I shot back. He waved it off. "A mix-up. She's on anxiety meds. Probably grabbed the wrong vial." I leaned forward. "I have the footage, Richard." His face went stone cold. "What do you want? Money? I knew you married Claire for the cash." I didn't blink. "I want you to stop meddling in our marriage. Stop telling Claire I'm not good enough." He laughed, bitter. "You think you're the first guy we've handled? Claire always comes back to us. Ask her about Michael, her fiance, before you." My blood ran cold. "What?" He smirked. "Nice guy, engineer. We didn't like his family. Took us 8 months to convince Claire he was a liar. She dumped him, came crying to me." I drove home, called Claire's old college friend Jess. "Michael?" she said. "Yeah, he was great for her. Her parents fed her fake texts, made her think he was cheating, broke her heart." The pieces clicked. This wasn't just personal, it was a playbook. Anyone who challenged their control over Claire was cut out. I didn't confront Claire yet. Instead, I tracked down Michael, now a civil engineer in Seattle. He was wary, but sent me old emails showing how Richard and Margaret had torpedoed their relationship with planted evidence. I reached out to Claire's ex-friends, people who'd vanished from her life. A pattern emerged. Anyone who supported Claire's independence was pushed out. Nate sent more footage. Richard and Margaret plotting in their home office. "Once they split," Margaret said, "we'll get Claire back here, running the family foundation, meeting proper men." I compiled it all onto one drive. Then I invited Lily and Nate over for dinner, keeping Claire in the dark. After dessert, I hooked my laptop to the TV. "You both need to see this," I said. For an hour, we watched the footage. Claire sat frozen, her face ashen. Lily kept whispering, "No way." When it ended, Claire turned to me, tears spilling. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I needed you to see it all," I said. "Not just what they did to me, but how they've controlled you your whole life." Lily stood, shaking. "This is fake. You doctored it." Nate put a hand on her shoulder. "They did it to us too, Lil. Why do you think they hated me until we had kids? They wanted leverage." Lily's face crumpled. That night, Claire clung to me in bed. "I'm sorry I doubted you," she whispered. "I need time, but I believe you." The next morning, Margaret called, her voice chipper over speakerphone. "Sweetie, why don't you stay with us for a bit? Marriage is tough. Some space might help." Claire's voice was steel. "Mom, I've seen the videos. You drugging Ethan's drink. You and Dad scheming to ruin my marriage." Silence, then. "Whatever Ethan's shown you is manipulated. He's always been jealous of our family." Claire cut her off. "Stop. We're coming over tonight. Me, Ethan, Lily, Nate. No more lies." She hung up, then looked at me. "They'll twist this. What's our plan?" I smiled, a spark igniting. It's time they met the real me, the guy who doesn't just make films, he tells stories that stick. That night, we walked into their mansion, my camera gear in tow. Lily and Nate were already there, tense. Richard was all charm, acting like nothing was wrong. A misunderstanding, I'm sure, he said. I set up my tripod. No misunderstanding. I'm recording this, for the family record. Margaret bristled. This is private. Exactly, I said. Family business. And I'm family no matter how hard you've tried to erase me. For 2 hours, we laid it bare. The spiked drink, the lies about Michael, the ex-friends they'd driven away. They denied it all, called me paranoid, unstable. But with every lie, I played a clip, showed an email. Their faces drained of color, their excuses crumbling. Finally, Claire stood. I love you both, but you've crossed a line. You don't own me anymore. Lily nodded, tears in her eyes. We're done letting you control us. As we left, I handed Richard a USB drive. This has everything. Footage, emails, testimonies. I'm not sharing it. That'd hurt Claire, and I'd never do that. But if you ever meddle again, copies go to your board, your investors, your precious socialite friends. For the first time, Richard looked at me like I was his equal. I misjudged you, he muttered. Yeah, I said. You did. 8 months later, Claire and I welcomed our son, Noah. Therapy helped Claire and Lily untangle the scars their parents left. Margaret and Richard kept their distance, sending cautious texts but respecting our boundaries. Then over the 4th of July, they invited us for a fresh start barbecue. Claire wanted to go. They're trying, she said. I wasn't so sure but went along, eyes wide open. The day was almost normal. Margaret grilled salmon. Richard asked about my latest doc with what seemed like real interest. After lunch, he pulled me into his home office. I've been thinking, he said, handing me a beer. Your films are impressive, but have you considered producing? I could fund a studio, set you up as CEO. Big money. I set the beer down, untouched. Why the offer? He smiled, too smooth. Your family. I admire how you handled everything. This is a peace offering. I shook my head. It's control, Richard. You can't buy me, and you hate that Claire loves me for who I am. His mask fell. Everyone's got a price, Ethan. Don't be stupid. I stood. That's your problem. You think everyone's like you. I walked out, finding Claire by the pool, Margaret showing her old family videos. Look how happy you were at home, Margaret was saying. Claire caught my eye, reading my face. She stood, voice clear. Mom, Dad, we've got news. Ethan and I are expecting another baby. Due next spring. The shock on their faces was real. Margaret hugged Claire, tears flowing. Richard approached, offering a handshake. Congrats, he said, his voice tight. I took his hand, then leaned in, voice low. This family's mine now. You don't get to play games with my kids. He nodded just once, understanding the line I'd drawn. A month later, a courier delivered a package from Richard's lawyer. Inside was the deed to our rental house, now ours free and clear, and a trust fund for Noah and the new baby. No note, no strings. It wasn't an apology, it was a surrender. They'd lost, and they knew it. That fall, I premiered my conservation doc at a Portland theater. Claire was there, Noah in her arms, my parents beaming in the front row. Richard and Margaret showed up late, stayed quiet, and left early. They didn't need to say anything. Their presence was enough, an acknowledgement that I'd carved my place not by their rules, but by mine. As we drove home, Claire squeezed my hand. They'll never really change, will they? I shook my head. But they know they can't change us. She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. In that moment, I knew the real victory wasn't the evidence or the confrontation. It was this, our life, our family, built on our terms. I hadn't just outplayed them. I'd rewritten the story,